Prologue. The Eyes That Would Not Die. Some stars fade, some explode, and some refuse the courtesy of either. They linger, half-remembered, half-invented, staring out from old photographs like an accusation. This is one of those stares, heavy-lidded, coal-rimmed, unapologetic. They once sold out theatres. They once terrified clergymen. They once launched a word into the English language. Now they float through history as a question mark. Theda Bara, she was the most dangerous woman in American cinema. At least on paper, a vampire who fed not on blood, but on men's reputations, marriages, bank accounts, and immortal souls. According to the press, she was born in Egypt, raised by mystics, trained in forbidden theaters, powered entirely by lust and moonlight, according to reality. She was a shy, book-obsessed Jewish girl from Cincinnati who liked tea, novels, and going home early. History prefers the lie. This is the story of how that lie was built, brick by brick, headline by headline, and how the woman inside it survived, vanished, and quietly outlived her own legend. Chapter 1. A child who read too much. Cincinnati, late 19th century. A respectable city, industrious, Protestant-leaning, intensely suspicious of nonsense. Into this environment arrived Theodosia Goodman, born July 29, 1885, the eldest child of Bernard and Pauline Goodman. Middle class, Jewish, ambitious in the sensible ways. The kind of family that moved often, not from instability, but from upward momentum. Theodosia did not arrive trailing prophecy. She arrived plump, dark-haired, serious, and already slightly disappointed in the world. From early childhood, she exhibited two qualities that would define her entire life. First, a ferocious interior imagination, and secondly, a deep unease with ordinary social interaction. She read compulsively, not dainty novels, everything. Mythology, poetry, melodrama. Books were safer than people. Books did not interrupt. Books did not judge. Her siblings played outdoors. She stayed inside and rehearsed emotions she had not yet lived. Her mother, Pauline, tried discipline. It failed. She tried punishment. It became costume rehearsal. At one point, young Theodosia was locked in a closet as correction. When the door was reopened, she was delightedly trying on hats. Later, she escaped the house so often that her parents installed elevated locks. She defeated them. When that failed, they built a fence. She watched its construction with interest, not fear. Some children push boundaries. Others take notes. Chapter 2. Performance as survival. Victorian childhood offered girls limited futures. Marriage, domesticity, respectable invisibility. Theodosia wanted none of it. What she wanted was expression, the kind that demanded an audience and punished indifference. She discovered it through recitation, tableaux vivants, and amateur theatricals, living pictures, posed tragedies, overwrought poems about death, abandonment, and moral ruin. Her favorite selection as a child? The dirty-faced brat. This tells you everything. She bellowed poetry at neighbors. She sang badly but enthusiastically. She pushed more talented children aside to claim the spotlight. She was not charming, she was compelling, and she frightened adults slightly, which is often the first sign of a performer worth watching. By adolescence, she had adopted black clothing, mystical affectations, and a solemnity entirely out of proportion with reality. She attended Walnut Hills High School, where she joined dramatic clubs, edited literary publications, and developed a reputation for intensity. Her yearbook praised her genius. This may have been optimistic, but it was not wrong. Chapter 3. The New York Meat Grinder. New York City did not need another actress. It had thousands. Most were younger than Theodosia, thinner, blonder, better connected, willing to eat worse food in smaller rooms for longer stretches of time. She arrived anyway. She changed her name, repeatedly. Decopit, Decopit, Decapit. Anything that sounded less like Ohio. She auditioned. She waited. She toured in road companies that barely deserved the term theater. Hotel comedies, musical leftovers, roles that vanished when budgets tightened. At one point, her salary dropped from $25 a week to $18. She quit. This was a pattern. Theda, as she increasingly called herself, did not suffer unpleasantness well. She wanted art without degradation, fame without filth. New York did not offer that. Meanwhile, fashion betrayed her. The hourglass figure collapsed under the reign of Irene Castle. Curves were out, slender was in. Theda was neither young nor slender. She was approaching 30. In theatrical terms, she was becoming furniture. Then her family apartment burned down. Insurance paid. Dreams did not. By 1914, Theda Goodman was talented, educated, ambitious, and going nowhere. History was sharpening its knife. Chapter 4. Enter the movies, accidentally. Early cinema was not prestigious. It was noisy, chaotic, slightly disreputable, but it paid. And more importantly, it was expanding so rapidly that standards were negotiable. Frank Powell, a stage actor turned director, noticed Theda during this moment of desperation. He placed her as an extra in a Pathé film. She photographed astonishingly well. The camera loved her face, its planes, its shadows. This mattered more than youth. William Fox noticed. Fox was a man who understood power, not moral power, but market power. He did not care who Theda was. He cared what she could sell. He signed her. 5 years, $100 a week. That would be about $3,200 today. She negotiated $150. Already, she was learning how survival worked. Her name became Theda Bara. Short, foreign, dangerous, and then Fox prepared to make his masterpiece. Chapter 5. A Fool There Was, or How America Invented Its Fear. A Fool There Was not subtle. It was not meant to be. It was a morality play built from male anxiety, about women, sex, modernity, and loss of control. The Vamp was not a character. She was a concept, a warning, a justification. If men failed, it was because women were predatory. If marriages collapsed, it was because desire was unnatural. Theda Bara did not soften this idea. She sharpened it. Her performance was stylized, deliberate, symbolic. She did not flirt. She invaded. She looked directly into the camera as if daring the audience to survive the encounter. Critics were horrified. Audiences were mesmerized. Women watched carefully. Men watched nervously. The Vamp entered the language. And Theda Bara became a star. Chapter 6. The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. Fox's publicity department abandoned restraint entirely. They invented Egypt. They invented parents. They invented foreign training, mysticism, desert childhoods, forbidden arts. The press printed everything. Theda participated, not eagerly, but professionally. She understood the bargain. She reclined at press events surrounded by incense and lilies. She spoke like a character from a play written by men who feared her, and then she went home and removed the costume. A myth is a cage made of applause. Chapter 7. Cleopatra, Salome, and the Cost of Goddesshood. Theda Bara became the embodiment of ancient women who destroyed men. Cleopatra, Salome, Carmen, biblical sinners and pagan queens. Her films were lavish, excessive, dangerous, and many are now lost, burned, decomposed, or discarded. What remains are fragments and photographs, always the eyes. She was praised. She was ridiculed. She was copied endlessly. She was never escaped. Chapter 8. The war ends. The Vamp goes out of fashion. History rarely kills its monsters. It simply gets bored with them. When the First World War ended, America staggered back into itself like a man waking from a fever dream. 4 years of death, propaganda, uniforms, and moral absolutism had left the public exhausted. People no longer wanted lessons. They wanted relief. They wanted jazz. They wanted short skirts, fast cars, careless laughter. They wanted women who danced, not women who judged. And so the Vamp, once the embodiment of forbidden power, began to feel antique. Her moral threat no longer frightened. Her symbolism no longer thrilled. She belonged to a war-era mindset: punishment, consequence, ruin. The 1920s had no patience for that. Theda Bara felt the shift almost immediately. Scripts grew thinner, budgets shrank. Roles repeated themselves like a bad omen. The same glances, the same poses, the same inevitable destruction of men who, frankly, now preferred to destroy themselves. She tried comedy. Audiences laughed at her. She tried theater. Critics were polite. Which is worse. Hollywood had built her as an icon, not an artist, and icons are useful only as long as they decorate the current moment. Theda understood this with painful clarity. There was no dramatic downfall, no scandal, no exile. She simply stepped off the screen. While the industry raced toward flappers, ingenues, and talking pictures, Theda Bara, once the most feared woman in America, exited quietly, without protest. Not broken, just finished. Chapter 9. The Woman After the Monster. If you are expecting punishment, history will disappoint you. Theda Bara did not spiral. She did not drink herself into obscurity or haunt casting offices like a ghost begging for relevance. She married Charles Brabin, a director, not a mogul, not a tyrant, but a steady, intelligent man who treated her as a partner rather than a myth. She lived comfortably. She hosted dinners. She read constantly. She cooked. She attended Hollywood gatherings where younger stars failed to recognize her, and she did not correct them. Meanwhile, her films began to disappear. Literally, nitrate film stock decayed. Studios discarded what they no longer valued. Nearly all of Theda Bara's work, the very images that terrified a nation, crumbled into dust. She watched this happen with surprising calm. She did not fight for preservation. She did not chase legacy. When the world builds a myth around you, survival sometimes means letting it die. Chapter 10. Her influence refuses to die. Theda Bara disappeared. Her films burned. Her name faded. Her voice was never recorded. And yet, she did not go away. Because influence does not require survival. It only requires replication. Once the Vamp existed, she ceased to belong to a single woman. She became a code, visual, psychological, cultural, capable of reappearing whenever society needed a woman to embody danger. This is how Theda Bara lived on. Hollywood learned quickly that fear could be franchised. Pola Negri arrived in American cinema carrying European excess like a provocation. Her performances were emotional, sensual, unapologetically intense. Where Bara had been symbolic, an abstract force of ruin, Negri made the Vamp fleshly and volatile. She did not replace Bara. She translated her. Nita Naldi refined the image into pure seduction. Often cast opposite Rudolph Valentino, she adopted the heavy coal-lined eyes, dark lips, and commanding posture that defined the Vamp. Naldi's characters did not punish men morally. They destroyed them willingly. Louise Glaume leaned further into menace. Marketed as a rival Vamp, her screen persona emphasized cruelty and domination. If Bara was mythic and Negri sensual, Glaume was predatory. The Vamp fractured. She multiplied. She became a genre. Across the Atlantic, Musidora's Irma Vep in Les Vampires, 1915, stripped the Vamp of ancient mysticism and rebirthed her as a modern criminal, dressed in black silk, agile, defiant, autonomous. No curses, no temples, just freedom. The dangerous woman was no longer an anomaly. She was repeatable. When fashion catches the fever, cinema never stays on the screen. Women watched, and then they changed themselves. By the late 1910s, newspapers warned of Theda Bara eyes spreading through polite society. Heavy, smoky makeup, worn deliberately, not coquettishly. Dresses darkened, silhouettes sharpened. Jewelry grew symbolic, ritualistic, heavy with implication. Designers followed. Lucille, Lady Duff Gordon, transformed Bara's exotic costumes into high fashion. Sheer fabrics, flowing lines, drop-waist gowns that suggested movement, independence, and danger. What had once scandalized audiences became wearable rebellion. By the time the flapper emerged, the vamp's moral threat had softened. But her visual language endured. Short hair, dark eyes, a refusal to appear fragile. Theda Bara had rewritten the grammar of femininity. The return. Rock, goth, and refusal. Decades later, Theda Bara resurfaced where culture stops pretending to be polite. In music, in subculture, in defiance. Goth and post-punk artists recognized her immediately. Susie Sue's stark white face, exaggerated eye makeup, and confrontational gaze echoed Bara's vamp aesthetic almost exactly. This was not imitation, it was recognition. The same refusal, the same direct stare, the same understanding that femininity could be weaponized. Lydia Lunch carried the lineage further, stripping glamour away and leaving confrontation raw. Where Bara had been mythic, Lunch was accusatory, but both rejected innocence as currency. In punk and goth culture, darkness became armor, heavy makeup became control. Femininity was no longer offered for approval, it was declared. Ghosts in pop culture. Even without her films, Bara's image continued to circulate like a cultural revenant. She appeared among 20th century icons on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, not as a joke, but as acknowledgement. In 2016, the Lumineers resurrected her Cleopatra for their album Cleopatra, allowing her face to move through the modern world once more, stripped of context, but not of power. Other artists were more deliberate. The goth multimedia project Bara Hari turned her name into invocation, not reference. Summoning. Epilogue. What survives and why it still matters. Theda Bara does not survive on film. She survives as a cultural scar. She is the first cinematic proof that female power, imagined or real, terrifies societies enough to turn women into monsters. The vamp was never only about sex. She was about blame, about control, about giving men a narrative where their failures could be explained by an external force with dark eyes and painted lips. Theda understood the joke. She played it better than anyone. And when the laughter moved on, she refused to beg for the spotlight back. She lived, she aged, and she disappeared. And yet, the eyes remain, still staring, still accusing, still asking the same question, who gets to decide which women are dangerous? Theda Bara did not survive as a filmography. She survived as an idea. The dangerous woman, the unapologetic gaze, and then she walked away. If you enjoy cultural ghosts, lost icons, and the lies we tell ourselves about the past, this is it. Subscribe. There are more stories like this, and they're not kinder.